moving on to topic number 3, some more coaches have been hired now in the NBA. Just over the past week, we talked a lot about the Celtics last week, but we didn't get too much into Ime Udoka, the brand new head coach for the Celtics, but also Jason Kidd, now the head coach of the Dallas Mavericks. You got the former Mavericks coach Rick Carlisle heading over to the Pacers, and then Chauncey Billups was hired by the Portland Trail Blazers. So, Brandon, we're Celtics fans. We obviously, probably like Udoka. I actually like him a lot. I think it was a good hire, despite me not knowing who the heck he was. Reading into him, I really like it. But out of those 4, who's your favorite hire and for which team, and who do you think is the best fit there?
Man, that's a great question. Honestly, let's hold off on that answer real quick. But because I don't know, I got to think about that. Because like you said, who's your favorite out of that 4? Because honestly, I think all 4 teams got themselves great hires and great matches. And I think you've got to bring in the right coach for your roster and for your program to be able to accelerate. And I think these 4 teams just did that with their 4 brand new coaching hires. So let's start off with the Celtics first, obviously with us being from Boston. So Ime Udoka. So we just talked about how every NBA team has to have a role player. That's what Ime Udoka was when he played in the NBA. He was that role player guy that would come in, play some great defense, grab a couple rebounds, and chip in a few points, and then he'd go back to the bench. But then he'd come in at a clutch moment. So he played, I believe, 8 or 9 years in the NBA. We wanted a former player. We got one now. Obviously, we were kind of rooting for Chauncey Billups to get the job, but we said we wanted a former player to come in, and guess what? Udoka is a former player. So he's really one of those former role players that's going to come in, so he's going to know how to handle those role players. But on top of that, he's coached under the likes of, like we said, Greg Popovich, and has learned under one of the best coaches in NBA history. On top of that, he's coached on the United States national team and has coached guys like Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown before. He said that he's going to come in and he's going to get the best out of them, and I think that's exactly what this franchise needs right now. So I think the Boston Celtics hiring Ime Udoka was a huge hiring. I think it's going to pay off great dividends, and we talked about, hey, what is Brad Stevens going to do, and how his first few moves have been excellent so far, honestly, clearing us $32 million in cap space by trading Kemba Walker, and then now hiring a great coach that fits the system, fits the roster, fits the city. And he's one of those young coaches that I think is hungry and is going to be, working hard to prove everybody that he deserves the job and to drive this franchise to the top. So I think that was a great hiring. I think the Dallas Mavericks bringing back one of their former players, Jason Kidd, I think was a great matchup. We said we didn't want Jason Kidd here. We did not want Jason Kidd. Out of all 4 coaches, I think he's the worst of the 4 that we're talking about. So we didn't want him here. But guess what? The Dallas Mavericks thought, hey, perfect fit, former player here, had some of his best years here in Dallas, right, as a player. So for him to come back and, maybe relive that glory now as a coach and get this Dallas team going. And now the question is, can you get your superstar signed to a max contract with Luka Doncic to want to stay in Dallas now with the new coach? So that's the new question we'll be watching over the next couple of weeks. But then obviously Chauncey Billups going to the Portland Trail Blazers. I think that's a great move. And it's honestly, if I'm looking to keep Dame Lillard, I think it's a great move here, being like, look, Dame, we've got one of the hottest commodities in the coaching world now as our head coach, and Chauncey Billups, a former player, big shot Billups himself, and you're a big shot player yourself. Dame time, baby. Dame time. Started off the show with a Dame time. Got to get a Dame time in there. And so it's just really one of those things. And then last but not least, Rick Carlisle. When I saw Rick Carlisle left the Dallas Mavericks, I said he might even be a chance to be the Celtics head coach, being a former Celtics player, which you pointed out to me in a text. I thought that was a huge, great tie, but a former player himself. And then he's had an unbelievable NBA coaching experience. So I thought he might have a chance of getting that Celtics job. But, hey, he goes back to the Pacers and now has a chance of building up a great team there in Indiana, obviously a state that loves basketball. So once again, I think all 4 teams really paid off here and got the great coach that they needed and wanted for their franchises.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think each team, that was probably 4 home runs. I mean, time will tell how good it was. Just quick on Udoka, I saw his press conference and I'm like, I really like this guy. I like what the Celtics did here. They didn't go for a splash. They went for the right guy. You know, he's coached three of the top players on the Celtics in Smart, Tatum, and Brown, like you mentioned. But also in the press conference, somebody asked him about those three guys, and he said, I love coaching them in FIBA, but he said, I'm going to be on their ass. And he's talking about the top players on the team, which I love that too. And he even said in the press conference, he turned to Brad Stevens and said, one of the things I want to change, sorry, Coach Stevens, but the Celtics were 27th in the league in assists last year. I want that to change. So he didn't have any problems sitting next to his boss, who is now Brad Stevens at Basketball Operations, and saying, I didn't like that when you were coaching this team last year, they were 27th in assists. Not saying it was Stevens' fault necessarily, but just saying that was a problem last year. We're going to fix that this year. But he's not brash. He's not like in it for himself. He loves the game of basketball. He's coached under some great coaches. So I think this is a great hire by the Celtics. I'm not going to get into every coach, but Jason Kidd, who I don't like as a coach, I thought it was the right hire for the Mavs, because the thing they have to figure out, like you said, they want Luka to sign the max. But Luka, as great as he is, I think Luka's already a top 10 player. He's so brilliant offensively. I think he's going to get better defensively because of his size and get in a little bit better shape. That would certainly help. But Luka kind of needs to be knocked down a peg a little bit. He's already calling the shots with the Mavericks right now, and I know he's an unbelievable talent, and he's already played with men before he even got to the NBA because he played over in Europe. But he needs to kind of be knocked down a peg. And when you have another, guy who is probably a borderline Hall of Famer, and Jason Kidd, actually everybody gets the Hall of Fame in the NBA, so he's getting in. So, he's going to be in the Hall of Fame. He was drafted by the Mavericks. Went back to the Mavericks, is a well-established player, and was a point guard who was one of the best distributors ever in the history of the NBA, to coaching a guy who is a great scorer, but when he's at his best, he's scoring, but he's also making unbelievable plays passing the ball. I think that was a great hire by the Mavericks. So I think that was really smart by them. Carlisle in Indiana, I think, is good too, because they're not going to win by getting a bunch of superstars. The Pacers cannot attract superstars. They just can't. They're not in the market for that. That's not what they're all about. So they need a tactician like a Rick Carlisle to really get the most out of the team that they have, out of the talent they acquire. So I think that was a good hire as well. So, but I think all four teams hit a home run there. I think all four hires made sense, just like you said. So it's going to be a lot of fun to see how these coaches do next year.
So you're telling me free agents don't want to go to Indianapolis instead of LA or Atlanta, or I agree.
Maybe just a little bit, yeah. I think they like LA, Miami, Dallas with no in-state taxes, just a little bit more than Indianapolis.
I agree.
Yes.
I agree. They have a tough draw pulling in top free agents there, at that location. And then obviously, hey, you got Luka rocking the dad bod, man. So it's really one of those things where I think Luka still has some of the baby fat on him, obviously, because he's still such a young superstar. I would like to see Luka increase his first step speed and first step acceleration. I think if he gets a little faster, he could obviously go from being a top 10 player to being a top 5 player, and maybe even putting himself in the like of being arguably the best player in the NBA, because he has such a good all-around game, like you said. So I'm really looking to see what he does, and clearly looking to see if he signs that max extension, which will be worth big money, not Lionel Messi money, but big money in itself.